Why was Quan Chi in season 1? Why was he in the episode about Heibai? Why? Why would you spoil him like that? Why would you spoil him like that? He's not in the show until book 2. So now that I've had a couple of days to, cool down and really think about the Avatar: The Last Airbender Netflix show, I've gathered my thoughts and I have more cohesive thoughts rather than my last video, which I was just ranting and raving for like 15 minutes about it. And with this more time to think about it, I've gathered that the show is worse than what I remember it being. The more that I've thought about how they did the show, and especially since the show has been announced that it's gonna have season 2 and 3, which means we're getting the entirety of the series, I'm assuming at this point. And I'm assuming we're gonna have around like 8 to 10 episodes, and I'm assuming that not much is gonna be changed as far as the pacing and everything like that, which makes me even more scared honestly, because I don't think that they'll do book 2 or 3 justice. I'm really scared for Toph. I don't know how they're gonna do Toph. I'm afraid. But nonetheless, I've gathered more of my thoughts, and I want this to be more of a focused discussion rather than just a rant about the show. And I want this to be more of a focused discussion on how they've neutered any character growth from the main trio, not any of the side characters, but just the growth of the main trio. And Zuko will be in there too, so I guess you could say the main 4 characters of the show. I want to focus on more of how their growth was neutered in the first season of the show, and since we're getting book 2 and 3, it's going to be heavily neutered in the other seasons as well.
Now a word from our sponsor.
Hi, before using Dubby, I was a father of 12, but now after Dubby, I'm a deadbeat dad. Let's see what we got in here for the Big Dubby. We got the motherfucking. Oh shit. So the first flavor of Dubby, we have peach and beet.
You what?
Second flavor of Dubby, we got the dragon mayo. Next flavor we have laxative.
What?
Laxy grenade. Next flavor we have this is a 0 sugar powder pack. And last but certainly not least, we have Heinz Berry Splash. I'm Wasabi, and this has been your Dubby advertisement.
So since book 1 has basically been wrapped up, I'm not gonna delve too much into book 1, and as far as the character growth and how it's non-existent in this show, so I'm not gonna delve too much into that. I mainly want to focus on book 2. As a matter of fact, I will go to book 3 too, but I mainly want to delve into book 2 because I feel like book 2 has some of the most pivotal episodes in the entire show, because that's where everything kind of comes together from the separate storylines that we're left with in book 1. But to kind of get through book 1, as I said before, the character growth in this show is basically gone. They're kind of just speed running through the character development and the character growth. Because if you know anything about Avatar: The Last Airbender, even though it's only 3 seasons, the amount of character growth that each character goes through throughout each book is astounding. Like, honestly, they're different characters by the end of each book, and I feel like the fact that we're not getting any of that growth kind of scares me. Like, it really scares me for the future of this show and the portrayal of these characters in this live action show. But just to preface, like I said in my last video, I know we're not gonna get every single detail from the cartoon. I know we're not gonna get every single detail and bit of lore from it. They're gonna cram some stuff in, but the way that they crammed everything in book 1 for the live action didn't work at all, and it didn't make anything better. Like, nothing felt good. No characters felt like they actually learned anything. They never felt like they actually learned from the consequences of their actions. Nothing really felt resolved. It just kind of felt like we were reading a Cliff Notes version of the show, and they just put a live action cast for it. But to get back on track, in book 1 we see the characters' confidence grow. I would say that book 1 for Aang, Katara, and Sokka is more or less about them building their confidence, especially for Katara and Aang. Katara and Aang, through the majority of book 1, are just looking for the confidence to be able to say, I can do this, we can do this. We're not, as clueless as we think we are. We're not as clueless, and we're not as weak as we think we are. as far as, you know, their mindset goes. Because obviously, physically, they're strong, but mentally, they're not there yet, especially Aang and especially Katara. They're not to the point to where mentally they think that they could do this. Aang is not to the point to where mentally Aang doesn't think he can be the Avatar yet. He thinks it's too big of a task for him to handle, especially because of the way that he was raised by the monks. He thinks that he's not the right person to take down the Fire Lord because of the way that he lives, because of the fact that he doesn't want to end the Fire Lord's life. He doesn't want to kill him. Same with Katara. She wants to build more confidence so that she can become a waterbending master. But her having no teacher and Aang even being more of a natural waterbender than she is, it hurts her confidence and her self-esteem. But throughout book 1, they both learn from their experiences and they both gain the right amount of confidence to where they're not fully there yet, but they have enough confidence at the end of book 1 to say, okay, we can do this. We might not be able to do it right now, but we will be able to do this before Sozin's Comet. We will be able to defeat the Fire Lord. We can do this. Now, Sokka's, you know, confidence arc kind of, you know, happens more later in book, like in late book 2, book 3, when he has that realization of like, you know, oh, I'm not a bender, you know, I don't feel like I'm adding much to the team. But even with Sokka, like Sokka's character growth from being a childish, you know, sexist person is basically gone because they took out, you know, his sexism. Like, they said that they toned it down, but it's not even there at all in the show. And I know it sounds crazy to be wanting a character to be sexist in a show, but it's not just sexism for the sake of sexism, it's sexism for the sake of character growth. His character grows from it and he learns from it. It's not like his character never learns from it and he's just sexist the entire time, but, you know, people forgive him because he's funny. No, he learns from it and he becomes a better leader because of it. And especially by the end of the show, you can say that Sokka is the leader of Team Avatar. Like, he's the one who comes up with all the plans and all the strategies for, you know, when they invaded the Fire Nation on the day of the eclipse, or even when they were stopping the Fire Lord on the day of Sozin's Comet. Like, those things matter to Sokka's character. Him, you know, having that humbling experience of, you know, getting his ass kicked by the Kyoshi Warriors was pivotal to his character. It was pivotal for him to learn that, you know, just because, you know, some people are women don't mean that you're better than them just because you're a man. Like, it's a basic story and it's a basic storyline, but his character learns from it and he grows from it. But that's mainly, like, you know, book 1. Book 2 is where I feel like if you were to ask me which book would they have the most character growth in, it would be book 2. Because book 2 is not only where they meet Toph, book 2 is where the most growing pains for Team Avatar happen. Like, the most growing pains as far as, you know, actually being a team and actually working together and actually, you know, having to mature a lot faster than they probably would regularly happen. You know, they meet Toph. Now they have to get used to being around Toph and, you know, dealing with her blindness and things like that. They have to get used to, you know, actually, you know, moving smarter, not just, you know, going from town to town and city to city, be like, oh, I'm the Avatar, you know, can we buy some food from you, and stuff like that. They matured a lot more in book 2 than they did in book 1, just because of the seriousness of what's going on, and the seriousness of the war really gets to them in book 2. And we also see Aang and Katara's relationship blossom a lot more in book 2. You see them, you know, falling in love, you know, at a quicker rate in book 2 than in book 1. But I say that I'm more worried about book 2 than book 1 because that's where Zuko's character growth comes in. Does Zuko have character growth in book 1? Yes. But majority of his character and the majority of, like, you know, important stuff that happens for him for the rest of the show happens in book 2. And just like with everybody else, I feel like Zuko has his most character growth in book 2. Book 2 is where he ends up siding with Azula. Book 2 is where he goes through his frustrations of, you know, losing his ship and having to go out on his own and having to realize that, you know, capturing the Avatar won't solve all his problems. Capturing Aang won't, you know, he has to realize that capturing the Avatar and capturing Aang won't make his father love him, because his father doesn't love him at all. His father won't love him regardless of what he does. Zuko could have brought Aang to the Fire Nation and his dad still wouldn't love him. He still wouldn't get acceptance from his dad. Even though he gets all the love that he needs and all the respect that he needs from his uncle, he was desiring that, you know, acceptance and that love from his dad so much. He was willing to literally risk his life several times just for that acceptance. But he learns that he's never gonna get that in book 2. He learns that. And I fear that in book 2, the live action, we're not gonna see any of that. We're not gonna see, the growth between him and Iroh, the connection, the connection between him and Iroh strengthened after, he loses his ship and everything. And after Azula is sent after Aang. We're not gonna see the real mental battles that Zuko has with himself, especially after Azula gets put into the mix of her hunting down the Avatar and her, going after Aang and everything like that. Those things I feel like we're just not really gonna have with the way that the series is going. To circle back to Aang, the reason why I say that book 2, well, at least another reason why I say that book 2 I feel like will be the worst one from this new live action series is that Aang goes through a lot of self-realization and a lot of self-realization about the fact that he has to take this more seriously than he ever thought he would have. And a lot of things he has to compromise on that he didn't think that he would have to compromise on. Because one big thing in book 2 is Aang learning more about the Avatar state. And Aang at least attempting to learn how to control the Avatar state and how to use it to more of his advantage, instead of it just being a scapegoat for him to use it when he's, about to, die, or when he just gets really angry. He wants to learn how to control the Avatar state. And the monk tells him that he has to let some things go to really be able to learn and to be able to control and master the Avatar state, instead of him just, instead of it controlling him. And that whole, plot line goes into him and Katara falling in love more in book 2. That whole plot line of Aang having to let Katara go and let go of the things that he loves and that he feels like, help him on his journey or help him in life just in general, are all a part of that and is intertwined with him falling in love with Katara, with him and Katara's relationship getting closer and closer. He learns that he's gonna have to let some things go or not have, control over the Avatar state. And with the pacing of the live action and the way that it's going and in the direction that it's going, and with the changes made to Aang, I don't feel like we'll be getting those like really, really crucial moments of him learning about the Avatar state and him having to, make the sacrifices and end up, making the big sacrifice like he did in Crossroads to Destiny, because he had to make a choice, because the monk told him the only way that he'll be able to learn it is to let Katara go. In Crossroads to Destiny, that's like the most important episode in like the entire series almost, because that, because Crossroads to Destiny like tells you how the rest of this show is gonna go. Because you think that, Zuko's gonna end up teaming up with them and everything, but he ends up turning on them. And now Aang has to make a decision as to whether or not he wants to, whether he wants to let Katara go or let his friends go. Essentially, Aang realizes that he has to make hard choices and that he won't have, that he doesn't have a lot of time to make these hard choices. He either has to make these choices now or suffer the consequences of not making the choice at all. Which, even though he ends up making the choice in Crossroads of Destiny, he still ends up, paying a price with Azula striking him down with the lightning. And that's something that I don't think we'll get in the live action. Those types of things, I don't think we're getting in the live action. That type of character growth, we won't get in the live action. We won't see Aang actually having to make these decisions in real time. They'll already be made. They'll already be set in stone. They'll already be set in motion. They'll already put us in scenarios to where he's made the decision and that, he's, chosen the Avatar state over Katara. He's chosen Katara over the Avatar state, or however they're going to change it. We're going to see him once he's already made those decisions. We're going to see Katara once she's, already made the decision to not, kill the man who killed her mother. We're going to see her, if she decides to not go after him at all. Like, we're not gonna see the build up to the decision, which I feel like is more important than the actual decision sometimes, because the build up lets us into their thought processes, lets us into know their way of thinking and how they think about, do I need to do this? Do I really need to decide this now? Do I have time? And things like that. The build up to the decisions is what we need. They're just giving us the decision. They're not giving us the build up. We're not getting all the little important tidbit and the advice that he gets from, previous avatars and the monks and everything like that. We're not gonna get that. We're just gonna get the end result. We don't get to see them go in the kitchen and prep the vegetables and prep the meat and everything and watch them cook. We're not gonna be able to watch them cook. They're just gonna give us the finished dish. It's basically like we're going through a drive-through of the show. We don't get to see how they prepare anything by the time we don't get to see them prepare anything. We're not gonna see them, prepare to make these harsh decisions or prepare to face these harsh realities of the show. We're just gonna see the result. We don't get to see the training arcs and the build up to things like that, which I can understand us not being able to see absolutely everything. But the fact that we're basically getting nothing in return is worse. The fact that we're not getting any of the training arcs, the fact that we're not getting any type of, patience for the pace of the show. Like, we're not getting anything. The fact that they already did the Secret Tunnel people is a clear example of they just want to get all of the funny bits out of the way in like 5 minutes. That's it. Like, they don't really want to build up to anything. Even the funny part, like the cabbage man was just kind of there, just like, my cabbages. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's supposed to be like a recurring pop-up, especially in book 2, but I don't even think we're gonna get that. Like, it's certain things like that to where, that's why it's the little things like that to why I say that the show is worse now that I've thought about it for a couple of days versus when I just watched. And now that I'm picturing how they're gonna do book 2 and 3, I'm even more worried because they've already spoiled the spirit of knowledge in book 1. We've already seen him. So now when he's there in the library episode, how are we gonna do the desert episodes? How are we gonna do Appa's Lost Days? Or are we even gonna get that episode? Are we gonna get Appa's Lost Days, or are we gonna skip that part? Because they skipped a couple episodes in book 1. So are we gonna get Appa's Lost Days? Are we gonna get the desert episodes? Are we even gonna get the library episode? Because as far as like main storyline wise, they will probably think it's not that important. But for their character growth, it is important. The fact that we're not getting any of the character growth in this show will hurt. I know that they had these record-setting numbers for season 1 and everything, but it's not gonna be there for book 2 and book 3. It's not. Especially after Avatar fans have watched season 1. The only people that will watch book 2 are people like me who gonna make videos about it. Like, the people who are diehard Avatar Last Airbender fans, I doubt they will actually watch this. Because we're not gonna get what we want. We're not gonna get a live action adaptation of the show that we grew up on and the show that we love. We're gonna get Netflix's version of the show that we grew up on and the show that we love. We're not gonna get the version that we want to see. We're gonna get a show with unnecessary changes, bad pacing, no character growth, no character development, and just, a couple of decent fight scenes. That's about as much as we're gonna get. And that's sad because I really wanted this to be like the breakout show for Avatar The Last Airbender into, the live action world. And if this would have been good, I would have potentially wanted to see a Korra live action, but it's like, now I don't want that at all. And I don't even like Korra all that much, but if this show would have been done well, I would have loved to see a Korra live action, because Korra fight scenes are, if are not on the same level, if not better than Avatar Last Airbender fight scenes, because there's way more of. But now with the way that they're going with the direction that they're going, I don't want to see any of that. I don't want to see Korra live action. I don't want to see any more of this live action, because we're not gonna get what we need for the show to be good. And I know I've said this a million times throughout this video. I know they couldn't do everything note for note, word for word, one for one, but they could have done way better than this. This is not Avatar. It's not Avatar, and it never will be.